Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty show. And tonight we're live Saturday night with a little Birdhouse AMA action. We're going to do our top 25 2025 rookie class reveal and just hang out with you guys. It was a great Saturday for college football. Lots of action today. Oh, man. Quinn Ewers gets hurt, and the 2026 101 Arch Manning comes in and lights it up for 5 touchdowns. Woo! But, yeah, Quinn Ewers, I don't know where he'll show up in my rankings, but he'll be there. You'll have to stay and wait and find out where he is exactly. All right. What else do we got on the horizon tonight? We'll talk a little NFL. There was a lot of action midweek this week. Of course, we had the update on the Christian McCaffrey injury. So all the Jordan Mason owners rejoiced. We've got the, A.J. Brown injury update. That we'll have to wait for Monday night to see if the hamstring is good to go. Or if he's just going to sit this one out. I would plan on him sitting it out, honestly, knowing how hamstring injuries are. They tend to not be great, and those usually do linger. And so hopefully it's just a week that AJB misses. I do have him in plenty of formats, so I'm crossing my fingers, hoping that auto sub doesn't have to kick in. But I don't mind the feature at all, so I will be definitely using it, as should you, for AJ Brown this week. Make sure you get that auto sub in. If you haven't already gotten it into your league formats, please address that with your commissioners. It's a great option to have, so get that in there. And so you can use it. It really just benefits everybody. There's no reason that I'm going to adjust this light a little. It seems too much. There we go. All right. That seems better. All right. And my dog wants to say hi. Say hi, BG. All right. There we go. Okay. You can go down. All right. But again, it really just helps everybody in the league at some point. And so everybody will benefit from it. There's no advantage one way or the other. I mean, yes, it'll help one guy 1 week. It'll help somebody else the next week. But everybody at some point in the year will benefit from it. All right. Come on. She wants to be in on this one. All right. Guys, you'll have to bear with me. Kid's having a sleepover, and so the dog's scared of being upstairs. But I didn't want to miss out being with you guys tonight. So please just drop any questions you've got. Start sit decisions, fine. Trade advice, whatever's on your mind. But right now, I'm going to share with you my top 25 rookie Superflex rankings, the 2025 rookie class. Here they are. And so we're starting off tier 1 right there at the top of the board with TMC. That's Tet McMillan, Teteria. We'll just go with Tet or TMC. Yes, the 101, number 1 wideout in the class. He's a beast of a man, 6'4", 2. He's only at maybe 208 right now, but I bet he beefs that up before the combine comes around this offseason. So check out some Arizona games if you can. The guy is just fun to watch. He is like a combination of Mike Evans with a little extra speed. He's almost just like Drake London as a prospect. Of course, we all know Drake London's been a little disappointing so far. Hopefully he changes that in our minds this Monday night against the Eagles. But so far, obviously, he's been a little disappointing. Some of that's on the Falcons not having anybody to throw to him. But now that he's got Kirk Cousins, I think Drake London is due for a breakout game. Back to Tet McMillan. The Beast had a solid game this week. Didn't show up much week 2, but after his week 1 performance where he put up 4 touchdowns in the first half, 300 yards total receiving. Yes, I moved him ahead of Luther Burden, the past wide receiver 1 in the class from Missouri. Missouri, of course, ranked number 6 in the country this year. They won again today, beating Boston College in a solid matchup. But yes, Luther Burden is no slouch himself. He is a little smaller, 6 foot, 200. I'd say Burden is more of your route running savant, whereas McMillan is your prize talent. So if I were to compare the two, they definitely are not similar wide receivers. I don't know if I had to put somebody for Luther Burden, I would compare him to like maybe we could get like a Jalen Waddle out of him, something like that. Otherwise, he's Deontay Johnson. So he's somewhere in between those two. Is what I would be expecting from Luther Burden. Not somebody who I would be jumping into the top 10 of the dynasty wide receivers right off the bat. Top 20, top 25, sure. But, you know, this rookie class, as you will see as we go down the board, is not strong with super high-end talent, all right? It's loaded at the running back position. So the dynasty landscape at running back will see a huge overhaul this season. You're going to have like 5 of these dudes jump into the top 15 at least, even maybe the top 10 at the running back position, because a number of these guys are better running backs than Jonathan Brooks, put it that way. Jonathan Brooks already himself has moved up the boards without even playing a single down yet. And he wasn't even really, you know, from my perspective, he wasn't absolutely someone to write home about. I mean, we're still yet to see. He's in Carolina, of all places. So I don't know how much that's going to help him. You know, they couldn't even figure out how to get the ball to Chuba Hubbard this past week in a complete blowout in a game where you would have thought Chuba Hubbard would have just feasted on underneath dump offs. But anyway, back to the wide receivers in this 2025 rookie class. We've got, as I said, Tet McMillan up top, then Luther Burden at number 2. Then we've got a couple of quarterbacks. And I know that most people don't have Jalen Milroe rated this high. Okay. If you go back to August before the college football season, Jalen Milroe was probably maybe in the top 5 at quarterback, but you definitely had people with Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Shadir Sanders, all ahead of Milroe. But now, with the way Milroe showed up, not only today against Wisconsin, but just how lethal he is with his feet. You look at the other quarterbacks in this 2025 class, and you just don't have many with legs. And that is really what Dynasty has turned into at the quarterback position. I mean, you look at the top 5 guys in quarterbacks in Dynasty. You've got Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. Then you have Patrick Mahomes, sure, and maybe you have CJ Stroud rated next. But I for one, you know, I still have Lamar Jackson ahead of CJ Stroud. Okay, what about Anthony Richardson? Is Anthony Richardson really any lower than CJ Stroud? Sure, he you know, with the suspected injuries to come into play, and with the injuries that Anthony Richardson sustained last season, You could argue that. And yes, that is what comes into play with your rushing quarterbacks are the injuries that they sustain. But the upside is just undeniable. I mean, look at Jaden Daniels' just debut. It wasn't a great game, okay? But the guy still put up 25 points or more, depending on your format, without even throwing the ball that well. He was, 16 of 24, I think, for, 200 yards, if that. But then he had 2 touchdowns and 80 yards on 16 carries on the ground. And he didn't even play that great. He hasn't even come close to what his potential is. All right? And so that's why many did have Jaden Daniels ahead of Caleb Williams in this past offseason. Most had Caleb Williams, but some had Jaden Daniels ahead of him dynasty-wise. And a lot of people had Jaden Daniels ahead of Caleb Williams in redraft. The majority of people did. I did. Career-wise, yes, I think Caleb Williams probably will last longer. Jaden Daniels personally reminded me of Robert Griffin III. Okay, now, Robert Griffin III sustained a bad injury, okay? Definitely not hoping something like that upon Jaden Daniels. And it's just ironic that they both happen to play in Washington. But point back to Jalen Milroe from Alabama. He's showed up these first 3 weeks. Ever since his benching last season by Nick Saban, he has been nothing but spectacular. He has turned around, become an absolute leader for that Bama offense. And he's got him back in the top 5 once again. And now he will stay in the limelight. He'll be a contender for the Heisman this year. Whether or not he wins the Heisman it has nothing to do with his future pro prospects. Okay, what really matters is that his passing game develops a little better. He's got great receivers around him there in Alabama. Nobody coming out this year that is of note, but the talent is there for him to produce through the air. And that's what he needs to show the pro scouts in order for him to become a top 5 pick this year. Now, I don't know that he'll go that high. Maybe he'll only go in the top 15, somewhere around there. Okay. But I think he throws at least as well as Justin Fields. All right. So you're looking at somebody who's right around that range of outcomes right now. And for the quarterback position in Dynasty, you've got a few dinosaurs that are going to die off here soon in Aaron Rodgers, of course. You got Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins. Of course, Atlanta already has the replacement there in place for Cousins. But the Jets have no backup plan right now for Rodgers. I'm sure they drafted Jordan Travis last year, but who knows if that'll be something. The Rams really have nothing in place for Matthew Stafford. I mean, sure, Stetson Bennett is there, but I don't expect him to be the guy going forward. If I had to bet on it, I would actually suspect the Rams to go after somebody maybe like Sam Darnold next offseason, or some other veteran who loses their job to somebody younger. Who knows, even Kirk Cousins could end up there. But anyway, back to Milroe. He's just somebody who I would put a top 5 pick on over somebody like Carson Beck, who just bores me to death. Any of you, I just got done watching the Kentucky-Georgia game, and it was exactly why I was not big on Carson Beck. All right. Carson Beck does not have the ability to just take over a game because of his talent. Honestly, he's only at number 4 here because of the hype. I personally don't love the guy. I'm sort of trying to mix these rankings with my personal beliefs along with what the market says they're at right now, which is also very true with the next quarterback on the list down there in tier 2, number 7, and that's Deion's kid, Shadir Sanders. I really just think he's there because he's Deion's kid. All right. If he was not Deion Sanders' kid, he would be somewhere down in tier 4 or tier 5. I'm not saying he wouldn't be on the list, but you have to take that into account. The fact that he's Deion's kid does draw people to him. It does draw hype on people. And we're playing a market game here. These names, these athletes out there, look at Jordan Mason, the hype that he's gotten. He's already up to an early second in value, and that could increase even more if he has a monster game again this week. People are already trying to get first rounders for Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason is nothing more than what Jeff Wilson was a couple years ago in San Francisco. He's nothing more than what he isn't even as much as what Elijah Mitchell was a few years back in San Francisco, a 6th-round pick. Jordan Mason is in the last year of his contract with the Niners. He's not going to be back there next year. He's not even he might not even get 25 carries the rest of the season once McCaffrey gets back. Okay? Might not. Doesn't mean he won't. I'm not saying you shouldn't go out and pay a second for him if you really need that in your running back rooms out there. I'm not opposed to paying second-round picks for running backs to get you starts. The key is that you're using them wisely. Now, to do something like that in week 2 of the NFL season seems a little hasty to me. Okay, now granted, that second rounder can get you 4 starts now. That's worthwhile to me. So I'm not opposed at all to paying that second rounder. The fact is, though, if your running back room has somebody else that can get you the starts right now, there's no reason to pay that for Jordan Mason. I have a dynasty team. I could bring it up right now just to give you an example here. I will try and bring this up real quick. So I have a dynasty team that has Christian McCaffrey, and God bless it, I had Jordan Mason on this team many times last season. He was a guy I constantly added and dropped all year last season. And so here's my team. It's a pretty good team. I won this league 2 years ago. I had the number 1 seed and took second last, lost in the championship. And now I'm back for more. And it's old. It's definitely a contender. I mean, if you go to Dynasty Daddy or whatever, I probably have the top starting lineup, but I definitely don't have the top value. I think I'm like 5th in value because I already had traded away most of my 2025 draft capital. All right. But if you look at this roster here at my running back position, I'm sitting on Derrick Henry, Rashad White, Najee Harris, and Christian McCaffrey, along with Chuba Hubbard down here. Now, Chuba Hubbard obviously has proven himself pretty worthless. Okay. And thank God I traded a second for Najee Harris this offseason, because otherwise I'd be kind of desperate right now. And I probably would have bought Jordan Mason. But the fact that I have Najee Harris, for instance, if you have Najee Harris or even a Ezekiel Elliott or Devin Singletary, any of those lower end running backs, lower end running back 2s, those types, even a Zach Moss, somebody like that. Definitely somebody higher. But if you've got somebody like that as your running back 3, there is no reason to waste a second on Jordan Mason, is the point I'm getting at. You don't need to trade for Jordan Mason so that you can sit somebody like Najee Harris or Devin Singletary or somebody like that on your bench. Okay. Yes, Jordan Mason is in a better position than those guys in that, he scored like 28 points last week, depending on your format. And he's projected for another 20 this week against the Vikings. But who knows that he gets 20 points again. All right. He had 28 carries last week, no receptions. 28 carries was a San Francisco 49ers franchise record amount of carries. So he is 99% not going to carry the ball 28 or 29 times this week. Okay. Odds are probably against him even carrying it 20 times this week. Now, may he? Possibly. But again, the odds are against that happening. So it's more likely that he scores less than 20 than he scores more than 20. That's my point that I'm getting at. And starting somebody like Najee Harris, who could get you 12 to 15 points, is just fine. It's probably not going to determine the outcome of your matchup, okay? You don't want to be trading for Jordan Mason just because of the hope that he could be your RB1 for the next 4 weeks, even 5, even 6 weeks, all right? Jordan Mason should be, if you're trading for him, it's somebody, yes, you can plug immediately into your lineup as an RB2 or 3 because you built a strong 0 RB team that's got 4 or 5 awesome receivers, got 1 really good running back, and then you're plugging a hole at RB2 every week. That's the kind of team that's perfect for trading your second-round pick for a Jordan Mason. All right, let's get back to the rookie rankings here. And show you why I don't like trading that pick. The reason I don't like trading that pick is because of the depth of this upcoming 2025 class at the running back position, combined with the amount of deadbeats we've got at running back in the NFL right now. Think about how many running backs from that 2017 class are still starting games, meaningful games for contenders this year. You got Joe Mixon out there, Christian McCaffrey, Aaron Jones, James Conner. All right. That's just 4 of them. Alvin Kamara. That's 5. Right off the top of my head. And there's a couple others too. I just can't think of them immediately. The point is that these dudes by 2026 they're going to be dead. All right. Maybe McCaffrey's still hanging in there. But look at them this year already. So point is, look at this next tier. I've already talked about the first tier, but this next tier of players, you've got Ollie Gordon, who's just smashing at Oklahoma State. Ashton Genty from Boise State, the biggest riser up these boards. When I did an initial preseason one, didn't release it out yet, but my initial preseason one had Genty around 11 or 12 overall. He's jumped up to 6. He's just destroyed. He went into his first week of the year. He had 6 touchdowns. Then he went into Oregon and had another 3 touchdowns, almost 200 yards combined. And so he's just blown up the boards. Then I mentioned Shadir Sanders already. After that, Emeka Egbuka, the receiver from Ohio State, who's kind of overrated a little to me. I don't know if I'll be keeping him there, but he's just kind of slid in as a placeholder. Year to year, we get this we get this tier of back end first, early second wide receivers every year without fail. There's always 3 or 4 wide receivers that always get into that tier. This year we had Ladd McConkey and Xavier Worthy and Keon Coleman, all arguing Brian Thomas Jr., all this way or that. Which way should you go? I had Brian Thomas Jr. locked in at my number 4, and I'm holding strong at that. I still like that I had him there. I like that he's produced week 1. And so we'll see how the rest of the year plays out for him, but it's looking good after week 1. Ladd McConkey had a solid week too. But Keon Coleman, he's going to be up and down this first year. Didn't even get a target this past week. The Bills are going to be spreading around all year. Dalton Kincaid's been a disappointment so far. That all has to do with game script. Okay. The Bills are still a solid team. They've shown that. They showed that by this past week's game on Thursday night. And they still look like they're the class in the AFC East. Definitely better than Miami now. All right. Miami's situation is just a mess. Okay. Just like the Packers. Miami's worse, though. At least Packers know that Jordan Love will be back. Tua, that's another story that we can't really predict. That has to do with a discussion amongst Tua's family, whether or not they want him to play anymore, whether or not he wants to play anymore, because ultimately it comes down to him. All right. And what his family time is worth to him. And I'm not trying to put him on the spot and make him a good guy or a bad guy. Okay. You only have so long in life to be in the NFL and be a quarterback, a starting quarterback for that matter, in the NFL, and be a top 15 starting quarterback in the NFL. Okay, sure, you can say Tua, well, he hasn't won a playoff game. He hasn't done this or that yet. Sure, but he still is a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. There's only 15 players in the world right now that can say that. And so that's why it's a tough call for the guy. And I feel for him. I wouldn't want to be in that situation. So if Tua jumps out of the league, and then you got those other older guys out of the league, these new quarterbacks coming in this year, this initially wasn't looking like a great quarterback class, but some of these guys are going to have to step up and start playing. So regardless of the quarterbacks, I know that these running backs are going to get their opportunities. So we have Ollie Gordon, Ashton Gentry, Sanders at quarterback, Ibuka at wide receiver, and then we finish off this tier 2 with 2 Ohio State running backs in Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. Now, Judkins I got just ahead of Henderson. He's been a better guy on the ground in between the tackles. Travion's more of a receiving back. So he's better all-around back, but like Ohio State has Judkins starting the games, and then Henderson comes in and they basically flip series. They're not it's not like Judkins is the first and second down guy and then Henderson comes in on third downs. No, it's Judkins gets a series, Henderson gets a series, Judkins gets a series, Henderson gets. So they're more similar to like about 15 years ago, Auburn had Ronnie Brown and Cadillac Williams in their backfield, monster backfield, right? And Cadillac was the starter, but Ronnie Brown ended up actually getting drafted one spot ahead of him in the NFL draft. And Ronnie Brown was a better all-around back. Cadillac was more a better between the tackles runner. Ronnie Brown's career lasted a little longer. He didn't sustain the injuries to the knees that Cadillac had. And so, unfortunately, Cadillac's injuries cost him his career earlier. Ronnie Brown did have a better NFL career. So if I had to compare the two, I would say Judkins is more like Cadillac and Travion Henderson is more like Ronnie Brown. Okay. So that's what you're looking at there. So you've got four guys that, and Judkins is still a decent receiver, as is Ollie Gordon. Ashton Genty is definitely an all-around back. So all these dudes are plus 200 pounds. They're all ready to go. They're NFL ready. So you've got four guys that can jump in and take over a backfield. All right. Doesn't mean they necessarily will. Maybe they'll get stuck with the Trey Benson treatment, but they're all better guys than Trey Benson. I'll say that for sure. They're all guys I would take ahead of Jonathan Brooks. That's for sure. Okay. So you've got those four right there. There's my tier 1 and tier 2. Those are going to be the bulk of your first round of your rookie drafts this upcoming season. So these are the dudes you're going to be wanting to try and watch as much as possible if you got a Saturday free. I had a Saturday free. My wife was up away on a girls' weekend. My boy had a football game this morning and then hung out with his friends. And so it was a fun Saturday. Got to watch a lot of college football. There was great games today. LSU South Carolina was awesome. Tigers came back from a 17-point deficit to win in South Carolina. South Carolina got screwed on maybe a couple of penalties, especially a one on a 100-yard interception return that got called back because of a little shove that a defensive player gave to the quarterback that was after the interception. So believe me, I'm not the only one complaining about that one. I'm neutral in that matchup. I do feel for my boys over on Tigsbits. And so a little partial to them. Don't mind LSU pulling it out. But that said, I do definitely feel for South Carolina. They should have won that game. And they've got a dude, Rocket Sanders, Raheem Sanders, who was at Arkansas and last year would have been one of the top 5 or 6 running backs. Now he transferred and he's going to be in this upcoming class. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with him. Just trying to find some college football highlights down here. But anyway, put on the longest yard classic. How are we doing out there? Anybody got any questions? Just feel free to throw them down there. Next up, I've got tier 3, and I don't know if I'm going to stay with this or move this guy down, but right now, we've got Quinn Ewers at number 11, top of tier 3. And Ewers went down with an abdominal injury today, which led to Archie Manning getting his opportunity. And so we're going to, let's see here. I want to get this scroll down. So I'm going to do this. There we go. Okay. So here's tier 3. We got Quinn Ewers up at the top, who had the abdominal injury today, which led to Arch Manning coming in, getting you got to check it out on if I can bring it up here. Let me see. I'm going to actually find this. I'm going to find this for you guys because this was too good not to. Okay. Okay, so Arch Manning comes in and takes over for years. And now, for those of you who don't know, Arch Manning is the son of Cooper Manning, who's the brother of both Eli and Peyton Manning. And so here's the highlight. Now, anybody who was privileged enough to watch both Peyton and Eli knows the type of rushing ability that those guys possess. Now, Arch Manning comes in, takes over for the Texas Longhorns today, and he probably gained more rushing yards than Eli and Peyton may have combined for.
Done much on the ground
season.
in this game.
Here we go.
Oh, look at Arch Manning. Oh, hit him with the two-step. Arch Manning, touchdown.
All right. So there's the highlight for you all. That was just insane. I mean, not something I expect. He went on to throw for 4 touchdowns today. 5 touchdowns total for Arch, and just showed what he possesses. He's got the name value. He's got everything in his back corner. I see him as the 101 in either the 26 or 27 classes, whether he decides to come out early or stay all 4 years, as both of his uncles did. So I would not be shocked if Arch waits to come out, because his draft slot is solidified. It could come down to who gets the 101, because as we all know, Eli Manning forced a trade out of going to San Diego when he was a rookie. Before he got drafted, he forced the Chargers to trade their 101, traded back. The Chargers got a couple extra firsts for it. Giants moved up to select Eli Manning. Then the Chargers, in turn, ended up getting Phillip Rivers, so it wasn't such a bad consolation prize. Now, as we all know, Eli ended up going on to win 2 Super Bowls. Phillip Rivers never made it to a Super Bowl, but all in all, career-wise, I think numbers-wise, Phillip Rivers probably had better numbers. It's just a matter of Eli getting to 2 Super Bowls and winning both of them. But career-wise, I would say Eli's stats were down here. Rivers were here. So I think they both had Hall of Fame careers. At least they were both on the brink of Hall of Fame careers. Eli gets in because of the 2 Super Bowls. Rivers gets in because of just the sheer volume of numbers that he had. Ben Roethlisberger was also in that class. Of course, he won 2 Super Bowls, so I think he gets in as well. He had decent numbers as well. And so that class was just a monster at the quarterback position. BG, it's okay. And so the situation we've got here in Texas, though, Arch is more talented than Ewers. And so this could be a situation similar to Oklahoma, where Caleb Williams took over for Spencer Rattler a couple of years ago. And Rattler ended up having to transfer, and he transferred to South Carolina. And he ended up being picked in, what was it, the 4th round, I think, to the New Orleans Saints this year. And now he's a backup to Carr. May get a shot this year, may not. Depends how New Orleans season goes. Rattler definitely has the talent to play in the NFL, but whether or not he's got the head to play in the NFL is another story. He definitely, in the combine and offseason process, Senior Bowl and that, he definitely seemed like he had changed and that he was ready and committed to, doing the work and going through the process that it takes to be an NFL starting quarterback. So I could see it happening for Rattler. Caleb Williams, on the other hand, of course, was the number 1 overall pick and will get the longest leash that you could possibly ask for. So, so we'll see how that turns out there in Texas. I don't love Quinn Ewers, that's for sure. So that's why I've got him down at 11, and I may move him down this week. Next up, we've got Evan Stewart, wide receiver from Oregon. If you look down, they also have another wide receiver, Tez Johnson, there at Oregon. So they have plenty of talent there for the 25th ranked player down there on the bottom, Dylan Gabriel. Gabriel's somebody who is about as tall as Kyler Murray. So I don't see him as an actual NFL quarterback, maybe a backup, is what Gabriel could become. But anyway, he's thrown to two future NFL wide receivers there in Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson, so they could easily flip-flop. But for now, Evan Stewart's up at tier 3. Isaiah Bond, another big wide receiver for Texas right now. Great talent for Ewers to be tossing the rock to and Arch Manning to throw to. That rounded out tier 3. Next up, tier 4. Got a couple of another nice running backs there, and Omari and Hampton from North Carolina and Nick Singleton from Penn State. Squeezed in between there, we have the first tight end that'll come off the board, Colston Loveland from Michigan State. Now, I rank these based off of a tight end premium, and so usually when there's a tight end that's head and shoulders above the rest of them, they tend to get pushed up a little up the board because somebody, I'm doing this based off of like a 12-man league, somebody out of the 12 needs a tight end, needs help at tight end. And so they're going to move up a pick or two to grab Colston Loveland if he ends up being the number 1 ranked tight end. Remember, we're doing these rankings in September. We're 6 months, 5-6 months away from the combine. And we're 7-8 months away from the actual NFL draft here. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen yet. A lot of movement that could happen here. Okay. Last year, Jaden Daniels at this point had a rough game against FSU and was just starting his Heisman season. I don't even know if he was a top 10 quarterback at this point last season. He was just starting to show what potential he had. He was a guy that was in his fifth year starter at LSU, had transferred from Arizona State. So guys could come out of the woodwork. Somebody like Cam Ward here, who's blowing up at Miami right now, he could move up. Jackson Dart also blowing up right now for Ole Miss. They're ranked number 5 in the country. They blew out whoever they were playing today. So those two guys, that's why I stuck in this tier 6. You also have Kyle McCord blowing up for Syracuse. He was let go from Ohio State. They just said they basically didn't want him anymore, so he transferred to Syracuse. And so he has just got a huge chip on his shoulder, and he is showing off in Syracuse. So that tier 6, I've got 5 quarterbacks there who all have a shot to move up the draft boards. Going back here after tier 4 is tier 5. I've got Kyron Lacey, another wide receiver from LSU. It seems they come out of the woodwork every year with a new wide receiver, and this year it's Kyron Lacey stepping his game up. The aforementioned Tez Johnson, wide receiver out of Oregon. And we've got Trey Harris, who's catching the ball from Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. And then Nick Anderson rounds out tier 5 for my wide receivers. And he's from Oklahoma there. So any questions you guys have, just leave them down in the comments. Be sure to smash the like and subscribe. That's the best way to help out the channel. I appreciate coming out and checking this out tonight. Again, you can always go to our Patreon. We got that going on, patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. You can also buy me a coffee anytime at buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. I'd love to help you guys out. I know we still got about 12 hours before our lineups need to be set for our Sunday noon slate here in Central Time. And got 10 games coming up for the noon slate. Some awesome matchups. My Buccaneers going against the Lions should be one of the marquee noon games. And that's a rematch from the divisional round last season. And so the Buccaneers are ready to roll. We'll see how Baker does against Jared Goff there. And I'm pretty excited. Both teams' secondaries are decimated right now. So if you're on the fringe with any of the wide receivers in those matchups, go ahead and start them because both teams' secondaries are looking a little rough. I would think that there'll be a little more scoring than most would think. I'm not one to bet on the lines or the over-unders or the point spreads. So I'm not going to tell you to go put any money on the over there just because the secondaries are beat up. But I think that your Jalen McMillans, Chris Godwin's, definitely Jamison Williams after last week. Those guys are pretty solid starts depending on how deep your league's lineups go. What else? For tomorrow, I think that Justin Fields is a decent start if you've had injuries. If you had Jordan Love last week, and now you're struggling, but you happen to have Justin Fields, go ahead and fire him up. Oh, she wants to say hi, so she's gonna come up here and say hi. All right. Anyway, that's enough for me. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. That's all I've got for tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm gonna end the stream with that. See you later. Enjoy your football Sunday. BG.